Hello, everybody. I'm standing here talking to a camera and John. This is very new to me because life did what it did, and Theosophical Society is being creative and doing something back. So the topic of tonight's talk was decided upon PC, pre-COVID, or Corona Chaos, I like to call it. And it's timely, relevant, and I trust extremely useful to you because life is happening in a very big and real way for all of us at the same time. And tonight's presentation is designed to support you in being resilient and creative and resourceful in the face of life doing what it does. So you can come out, my intention would be even better than you had ever imagined. So I'm used to, and I love talking to a live audience. I love looking into people's faces. I love smiling at people and engaging with people. And I have this amazing, wonderful man here, John, and all of you out there. And one of the ways I was realizing I'm outside of my comfort zone, talking to people I can't see. So this is new for me. And one of the ways you can help me is to really just be with me, even though I can't see you, because we're all connected in some deep way. And I'm wanting to expand my capacity to feel into you and to be community without having to see you. So you could really help me by being present with me and participating at your end of the camera. And so we could do this evening together. And I thank you for that. So, as I said, this information is timely. Life happens. What are we going to do about it? And I'm going to share with you some power tools so that you could be resilient and resourceful when life shows up other than we plan. Because I'm not sure how many of us imagined we would be doing this now. And one thing I'm learning, and I have learned over the course of my career, and as John said, I've been doing this for over 30 years, which led to the book that's about to be published, that the most important thing we can do in order to access our creativity is to calm down. And in this age of anxiety, that's what some people are nicknaming even before the current circumstances. People are really riled up into a place of never-ending disturbance and upset and moving too fast and not being able to keep up with themselves. So the ability to just calm down so we can lift up into that creative intelligence, our own spiritual wisdom, is really useful. And tonight I'm going to show you the reasons why we kind of move into upset so you could have compassion for yourself, and also from that place of loving support, be able to shift to another way that perhaps is more useful to you. And one of the things have learned, and I'm still learning, is that peace isn't static. When I was a younger version of myself, I had imagined that Buddha sitting in his moment of enlightenment, in the pose we all recognize Buddha sitting in, that's what enlightenment looked like. That one day I would get to this shift of enlightenment and peace would pervade and it would never move. Like there was this place I was going to get. It was a destination. And that's not true. Life is continually moving me around and inviting me to expand and into an even greater resource of peace. And there's something that I like to use with my classes, and that's what's called a pinwheel. I'm sure many of you recognize this. It's a toy for children. It's made out of paper. And the reason it's called a pinwheel is because there's a pin in the center holding the pieces together. So imagine this is a day in the life, maybe in mid-March, and all of a sudden you've been told to stay at home and all these things are happening and you have no toilet paper. And I mean, I can't even do it. So does that look familiar? And even pre-PC, we've had days like this where we're just kind of running around being moved by outside forces, really disturbed because like it keeps coming at us. But if you can imagine, if you see the pin doesn't move, in the center of all this activity, there's a still center. And I want you to imagine that this pinwheel is your human embodiment, that at the center, at the source of each one of us, there's a still point. And then we come into this world and become animated, and we begin to move and express ourselves. And what happens is very often we start to identify ourselves with the package we come in, with the activities, with our doing, and we forget that there's a place we came from that's still very present and that we have access to, is that still center point. In English, it's fascinating to me, the word human can be looked at where the prefix hu is an ancient Sanskrit word for God. Man comes from the word manos, Latin, meaning hand. So if we look at the word in English, human, we are the hand of God. So the hand is the form, the thing that is in the world. But we're here to be useful and in service to something greater. That still point, that breath that brings life force into the form, that is the process of what it is to be in our humanity. And today we want to really look at what is that which is the God in you, the essence of you, that which breathes you. What is it giving into this world? Because at this time of chaos, which is known to be an evolutionary process, that out of chaos comes the next expansion into something next, we can participate with how we contribute. And as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. So what is it that you need to change inside of yourself in order to bring something, be part of something greater here? Because from my point of view, and it's just my point of view, you may or may not share it, it's up to each one of us to participate in the change that's happening, to hold a vision of something greater, something better than what we came from, and to land on the other side of this thing grateful for the journey we've been on. And that's going to take our participation and our personal leadership. And to me, a leader is somebody who holds a vision, accesses inner and outer resources, designs actions, make choices in order to bring about a change, something that's more useful than where we were before. And that's the blessing of our humanity. Human beings can reference a past, imagine a future, and design actions right now that will impact a future that is other than what we stand in today. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is way you can be part of that creative process. And I'm so glad that I was invited to do this then so that it can be useful to you now. I want to suggest that the world is designed to upset us. So in my first book, Life Happens, What Are You Going to Do About It? Often what happens, the first sign of life going right when we thought we were going left, or John Lennon is famous for saying life is what happens when you're making other plans, is to get upset. It's like, it's not going the way we thought it was. We get reactive and we get disturbed. And I'm going to suggest that life is intentionally disturbing us, waking us up, that to remind us this is not who we are. This thing that we were doing, this role that we were playing, this story we were telling us about the circumstances of our life, this believing that what I have in my mind is what's real, that life actually knocks us out of place in order to wake us up to the truth that who we really are is a spiritual being, the life force itself, God in form, expressing itself, having an experience. And the Sufis say that the journey of a lifetime is a remembering ourselves back to source. So if life is designed purposefully for a higher evolutionary process to wake us up, then the sooner we can move from upset to embrace, the more useful we can be to our own personal evolution, and the more useful we can be to making a contribution to the circumstances we find ourselves in. So what I'm going to share with you comes from my 30 years of working with people and from my lifetime of growing myself into somewhat of a sane version of a human being, having to have struggled with my own crazy brain and reactivity and misunderstanding about who I am and what I'm to be about. But my training is in practical spirituality. I have a master's degree in spiritual psychology. I have a counseling psychology degree, and I'm licensed. I have a master's degree in theology, and I'm right now in a doctoral program for spiritual science. And what practical spirituality is about is making the spiritual teachings practical, useful, and actionable in our ordinary, everyday life, so that our humanity becomes a process of our spiritual growth. So yes, what I'm talking about comes from the world of personal and professional development, but it's held in the context of your spiritual awakening. And I never know what to call myself. Today we're going to call me a leadership coach because I just spoke that we're here. This world could use some leadership in a form of a positive direction and inspiring us to stand up into something greater than we were. And rather than waiting for somebody out there to do it for us, each one of us can stand up inside ourselves and take leadership of our own lives and inspire others to do so the same. Regardless, each one of us is responsible for this package we've given. It's my job to take care of and be responsible for me, and that's called personal leadership. And as I said, leaders call forward a vision, harness resources, develop a plan of action, implement, and bring something forward that wasn't there before. Being in a place of leadership is being a creative contributor to yourself and to other people. And it's a forward-moving process. So we're called right now to step forward because it's time for us to change, apparently, because that's what's on the agenda. So what do we want to change into? We can wait for somebody to decide for us, or we can be contributors to the direction we want to go. And we see that all over the world right now, people standing up for what they want and saying where they would like this process to be going. I want to shift into a story because stories are fun. And it's a useful story because it's a story of our humanity, although it's a particular situation that occurred. About 5 years ago, I was traveling and I was in Los Angeles and I had just finished the draft of my first book. I was all excited about it, and I'm leaving from LA to come to Chicago, and for whatever reason, I was flying standby. And there was a way for me to access in the morning whether the flight was open or not. And it was green, which means when you get to the airport, there's not going to be a problem getting on the plane. Great. So I got to the airport, and lo and behold, I look at this list, and I'm number 80. So what happened, life, between when I left where I was staying to get to the airport? Apparently there had been terrible weather in Dallas and thousands of flights were canceled and they're being rerouted all over the country. And LA was one of those rerouting places. And there were people who had tickets. So I was number 80. So there's a protocol. And I had to sit and wait to not be called for the flight so that they could put me on the next flight, which I also wasn't called for. And so this was the drill. I was in acceptance. I was grateful I had my computer. I'm sitting in a comfortable chair, and there's a man sitting next to me, and he's reading a book. And I noticed the book, it's like Battered Bugs or some weird name like that. And they call the flight, and people start lining up, and he doesn't move. So I'm thinking, well, he must be going standby. So I say, you going standby? And he goes, oh, no, I just hate waiting in the jetway. I said, oh, okay, I can relate to that. And people are boarding the plane, and he's reading his book, and the line starts to thin out, and he doesn't get up. And we start to talk. And he's still not getting up. Now there's nobody online. And I look and there's 2 pilots and a flight attendant running to the gate. And they board the plane, at which point he decides he's going to get on the plane. So he takes his book and he puts it in his briefcase and he zips it up and he pulls out his boarding pass. And as he's walking over to the gateway, I say to him, sorry about the bugs. And he goes, what? Oh, yeah, that book is bad. My friend wrote it. I had to read it. And now he's at the gate and he's giving his boarding pass to the gate agent. And I go, well, you should read my book. He goes, oh yeah, what's it called? I go, Life Happens. What are you going to do about it? At which point, life happened and I got to see what he did about it because they told him he missed his plane, that he had waited too long in the waiting area and they had given his seats away. And so I got to see what he did about it. He throws down his bag and he starts yelling at them, I have to get on this plane. I have to get on this plane. Venomously. So, do you think he got on the plane? No. No amount of screaming, throwing himself on the floor with a tantrum, crying. He didn't do any of those things. He just yelled. But we've seen people have a whole variety of meltdowns when they didn't get what they thought they were going to get. And if you were in the room with me at this point, I'd say raise your hand if you've ever missed a plane, metaphorically or literally, and had a meltdown. And I imagine everybody in the room would have their hands up because we're all human. And we do that. And that's okay. And I'm here to tell you that's okay. Because human beings are human animals first. Remember, we come in an animal body, which is designed to keep us alive another day. And it needs to pay attention to the circumstances that might be changing that are dangerous. So, let's think about a reptile. I don't know if any of you have ever seen one of those little reptiles, those little salamanders on a rock in the sun, just chilling, having a day, and all of a sudden something happens. So imagine, they're cold-blooded, and a cloud goes across the sun, and all they know is there's a change of temperature. And skedaddle, those guys are out of there, gone. I mean, they don't sit there and go, no, is that a cloud or is that a bird that's about to eat me? No, they just get out of the way. It's called flight. Remember the survival instinct, flight or fight, which is what that guy did at the gate agent, with the gate agent, starting to growl. Now, sometimes growling works. I have a raccoon who loves to eat the bird food at my feeder at night, and when I don't forget to take it in, she or he is like in there, and sometimes I forgot to bring the food in, and I'll turn the light on, and it'll see me, and I'll go, grah! I'll stay in the house, so I let it have the bird food. It works for me when it goes into that, because it has claws. So as human animals, we are designed to be reactive to circumstances, which is fine. The only problem is, for human beings, is we forget to calm down. We just stay in this never-ending process of upsetting ourselves. So we know the story's not about the man who didn't get on the plane. It's about all of us. And he didn't calm down because I told you I had to go to the next flight and wait to find out they weren't going to call me that day either. And he's on his cell phone telling all his friends how the airline had done him wrong. So he was carrying that moment into his future, and he's still living in his disturbance. And again, it's not about him. We all do this. And the only thing this is about is to ask ourselves, is this really useful? So this is a quote from my book. It says, mastery in life is not about avoiding adversity or challenges. It's about learning life skills so you're resilient, responsive, and resourceful when life does what it does. It's about embracing change while learning so you can meet life and win. So part of winning right now, you could think of some times in the past when the door closed in your face, and as you look at it, you're grateful. And you can see that perhaps that magnificent mystery that breathes all of us had a better plan, and not getting on that plane brought you to a place that you wouldn't have been otherwise, that you cherish now. For me, I'm glad that guy didn't get on the plane, because that's really a great story for me to have and share with you. I mean, who orchestrated that? Again, I want us to remember we get upset. And you can look at the world right now, there's upset happening. The key is not to stay upset. So trying to not be upset is not kind to ourselves. Allowing the upset to happen so it can inform direction as to where we want to move to, that is useful. But to think that if I'm a spiritual person or if I'm emotionally mature, I'll never get upset is not grounded in reality. Peace is a dynamic energy field that is engaged in collaborating with life circumstances. Even though it's sourced from stillness, it moves into action from a place of curiosity, wonder, and invention. And that is life moving. So we're going to look at, I have a PowerPoint today, and we're going to look at a chart that I have. It's a two-dimensional chart to describe a multi-dimensional consciousness of humanity. So I always love that, because somehow they work. They help people. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I've shared it with many people, and then they'll come back to me later and they'll reference the chart as to how they made use of it. So I'm going to be showing the chart here. And if you would like your own very pretty version, PDF, all you have to do is write to me. There's my email address. Happy to send it to you. And on that note, if you have any questions or concerns relative to what I'm speaking about today, you're welcome to email me, and I'm happy to respond to you. If you don't hear from me in 24 hours, that spam folder is problematic. Please reach out again, because I'm pretty good about answering. This is called the ladder of consciousness. Doesn't that look like a ladder? And as I was saying, the first rung on the ladder, the lowest level of consciousness, not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just how the dynamic of our multidimensionality expresses itself is fear. So that's the reptile on the rock. And like I said, it's useful. Everything that we experience is useful. Because if you think about, all fear says is pay attention. It says, we've not been here before. Be alert. So you think about the caveman or woman on the savannah with its only friend, a pointy stick, and it hears a sound, a rustling, and it goes, right? What's that? And it's paying attention. Is that going to eat me? Or can I eat it? And it's part of how we engage with life when life is doing what it does, so we can design an action to meet our circumstances and win. Winning would be living another day in this situation or bringing home dinner. So fear is useful. It just says pay attention. Now, above fear is anger. So flight or fight. And anger, even though it's a sense of wanting to be powerful, it's really sourced from fear. So the man at the gate, the raccoon in my bird feeder, but we can only stay angry for so long before we fry ourselves. So the next level above anger is something called resentment. Resentment is a smoldering anger. It's about you did something, circumstances did something, something happened, and I'm a victim to outer circumstances. And it shouldn't have happened because now I'm suffering. And so resentment kind of stinks of victim. It's like, my life is the way it is and there's nothing I can do about it because of something out there. Again, not right, wrong, good or bad, but we want to see how useful these states are. If we want to stay there, or do we want to do something to move out of them into something else? Then, of course, we all are familiar with judging. Raise your hand if you've ever judged, are judging right now. Oh, look, a room full of hands. How interesting. The mind loves to judge, doesn't it? It's where the should monster lives. The should, the right, shouldn't, right, wrong, good, bad, lives in the world of the mind, and that is useful too, or it was when we were living in tribes. Remember, we're mammals, we're tribal. And the tribe is needed to be its own organism and therefore needed to have a way to have homeostasis and some sort of conformity so the tribe could live another day. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like we're not tribal anymore. So do we want to stay there? Or do we want it to inform us that we have another choice to make? Then, of course, human beings love to imagine a dreaded future, thinking that that's a useful way to spend time. And we all call that worry, fretting, a misuse of imagination, running into the future, imagining worst case scenarios and being so frightened that the sky is going to fall that we can't do anything about it now. Or thinking that worrying is actually an action, other than adding to the age of anxiety. Then we have disappointment. Disappointment lives in the world of unmet expectations. So I'm going to pause for a commercial here in the sense that I have some resources I'd like to share with you. Disappointed expectations come when people don't know how to use their relational skills because they haven't been taught about how to make requests and negotiate agreements. And as we move forward in this process of being the change we want to see in the world, we're going to have a lot of relationship opportunities to change the way we're navigating and collaborating in this world. And to do that well, we need to work together through a process of agreement making. And if you'd like to learn more about that, because that's not what I'm talking about today, I do have an information packet I'm happy to give to you as a gift. All you have to do is write to me and I'll send it to you. It's an audio tape and there's written materials. And I'd love for you to have it. If you want it, please reach out. Life-changing stuff. Only because if we knew better, we do better, so it's a way to learn. So we run around the bases. We don't always afraid. We're not always worried. We're probably judging a lot. Disappointment, resentment. I call this victim land. And we're the reactor living as a victim. I also affectionately call it the hamster wheel of Hades. And it keeps perpetuating its cycle. We keep getting upset that we're upset, that we're upset, we're upset. I mean, life is disturbing, yes, but we don't have to get upset that we're upset. That is a very big key. Sometimes we think getting upset about being upset is useful. No, getting upset and calming down is useful. But you wouldn't know that by watching the news because they love to just perpetuate the cycle of upset. So if you were in the room with me, so let's pretend you are. Would you like to know the move? Would you like to know how to get off the hamster wheel of Hades? Great. I'm happy to show you. Here's the doorway to heaven. And it's called taking responsibility. Responsibility, if you break up the word, is the ability to respond. Being responsive is very different than being reactive. Huge difference. If I have the ability to respond, that means I'm aware, I have the capability of responding, which means I'm making a choice. As soon as I'm aware I have choice, I have lifted into that part of the human brain that can observe. That is not a reactive mind. So as soon as I say, I'm willing to take responsibility, now what? I'm no longer in the cycle of negativity down there in the hamster wheel of Hades. I ask a question, now what? With curiosity and wonder. And all of a sudden, as I'm even talking to you, I can feel this whole upper part of my mind just open up from a place of curiosity, welcoming something inspired, something greater than I'm aware of at this moment. I'm opening up out of curiosity. I'm taking responsibility to be the change I want to see in the world. Now what? Is there something I can do about my circumstances? And I love this because responsibility to me is the key to freedom. Most people, I remember when I first got introduced to this concept, people would think, well, responsibility, it's this burden, it's this drudgery. It's anything, it's the opposite of that. It is freedom. The ability to make the choices in my life, that's what brings me freedom, rather than letting other people determine the outcomes I'm going to get to live in. Now, I don't have free will. I can't do anything about some of the laws that are passed, but I can do something with my attitude about them, with my willingness to participate, and how I'm going to be in relationship with my circumstances. There's a saying, it says, when it snows, some people get cold and other people go skiing. The weather is non-negotiable. What I do with my circumstances, that's where my true creative power lies. So that's where I can be the change I want to see in the world. So on this note, I just want to share another story. It happened, I think it was about 2 years ago in the summer. I came down to my kitchen for my coffee. And I was putting water on, and I get to the sink, and on the right side of my sink, there's this dark mass. It was black, dark brown, really. And I go, what is that? Did I have salad last night and left a lettuce leaf in this? My mind immediately made something up in the absence of information. This mind of ours makes stuff up. And I made up that it was a brown lettuce leaf and realized, first of all, I would never do that. And number two, that's a really dark brown overnight. And number three, there's a foot. I saw a foot. It wasn't lettuce. And then the mind made up it was the biggest frog that had ever been in my house. Because I didn't know. I didn't recognize what it was. I've had frogs in my house. They're like this big, but this. And then I realized it was a bat sleeping in my sink. So, do you think maybe I had a moment of fear? Just a moment of it, right? I wasn't angry. I was a little bit on, pay attention, Leslie. You've not been here before. And then I just somehow went still. I found that place of stillness. And I took a breath, and I was looking at the bat. It was sleeping. It wasn't moving. And of course, part of the creative imagination was remembering the past. Remember I told you human beings could reference the past and then imagine a future and design actions in the now. So somehow my mind went to like the Hitchcock Bird movie, which was very scary for me when I was little and I watched it. I was terrified of birds for like years after that. Or of a movie I saw with bats falling on your head, and I go, oh no, I don't want that outcome. So, because I was now creating visions, and I didn't want to create that vision, so I got quiet, and all of a sudden it felt like the top of my head opened up, and in came an idea. I was inspired. And the word inspire, in came spiritual wisdom. Some sort of higher wisdom landed. And I saw how to move the bat out of the house, just in an instant. And I have a sink tray, and the bat was here, and there's sliding glass doors over there. So I backed away, opened the doors. I grabbed a dish towel on the way back to the sink. I put the dish towel on top of the bat. I tucked it in, and I skedaddled backwards out the door and dumped him on the grass and put him out there and ran back in the house and closed the door really fast. He was still sleeping for like an hour and a half later. I mean, they're not supposed to be out of their bat cave in the day. That was, to me, such an example of being a creative responder in the face of surprise events. And it taught me so much about, that was a very simple process of calming down and making myself available to receive some creative inspiration, innovation, invention, resourcefulness. I mean, look at all the examples that bat story tells us. So the lifting up part into something greater. And I call that moving from victim to victorious. And I still feel victorious with that story. I was really proud of myself. And over here, I created something that didn't exist before. That was an invention, getting that bat out of there. And notice, if you look at the word creator and reactor, they have the same letters in it. They're just scrambled. And when somebody pointed that out to me, I was fascinated to realize that in the midst of my reactivity, if I just calm down and shift things just a little bit, I can have access to my creative brain. That even in the moment of reactivity, creativity, also same letters, is available to me. I just need to calm down, move the letters around a little bit, just move where it is I'm referencing from having out there be impacting me to instead now having an inside-out experience in relationship to what just happened. And this is a moment-to-moment thing. I mean, a lot of people are in big conversations right now about redesigning their lives, redesigning their business, redesigning how we do things here at Theosophical. And it's over and over again, calming down and asking, now what? Opening up that creative wonder brain and letting new things show up, reveal themselves that might be things that we can walk on into the future. And that's the beautiful thing about humanity. Humanity makes things up. I mean, like if I push this button, I finally figured it out. If I let the button go, the red dot goes away. But see that? There's a dot on the screen. Somebody made that up. And what about this easel? And what about my computer? And what about my reading glasses? Human beings make up stuff all the time that wasn't there before. We're amazing. And they come because we have circumstances that we're engaged with that maybe aren't to our liking. Or maybe we've just outgrown them. That happens because we're really more than human beings, we're human becomings. Human beings love to expand and to grow and to become something next. I mean, I don't need to be in a doctoral program at this point in my life. But I am challenging myself to become something more because I find joy in that. Is it disturbing however my life was designed before that? Sure it is. Is that a problem for me? Sometimes, but no, because I'm loving the change. I'm loving the opportunity. I'm loving the reward from the participation. So sometimes life happens to us and sometimes we stir things up. Like anybody in here raise their hand if you ever got married? That was a life happening event. Have babies, get a new job. It's not always about outside in. Sometimes we're the ones that make things different. So if you were here with me, and here, I forgot to show you the rest of that. These are only a few of the qualities that come with our humanity when we decide to stand up. Joy, love, inspiration, fun, play, invention, creativity. I mean, in the process of this change, there's no reason not to have fun. And when you figure out, oh, well, look what I just did. Isn't that fun? Oh, we made it through another day. Yes. Or taking time to just laugh. You know, the humor that's going around, some of it is just brilliant. Engaging our imagination, having compassion, resilience, resourceful, optimism. There's got to be a pony in here someplace. And enthusiasm, to allow ourselves to be theo, filled with the Spirit. That's what's available to us when we decide to get off the hamster wheel of Hades. And this hamster wheel of Hades, you know, people make a lot of money getting people to live down here. Certainly buys, in the old days, newspapers. continually getting people to be upset, to be upset, to be upset, to be upset. I'm really upset. I think I'll go buy a pair of shoes, whatever it is. But why don't we start to be the people who live up here, higher on the ladder? And remember, if something happens and you fall, drop down here, that's okay. Life happens. And usually the first thing is we go into something happened and I don't like it. And you can stay there for 2 minutes. No, stay there as long as you want, but know that you have a choice. And I'm somebody who, instead of creating my identity as the one who lives on the hamster wheel out here, I've upgraded my addiction to being the one who lives in the center of all of it. That doesn't mean that I'm not aware that there's upset happening in my multidimensionality. Like something happened at my house and didn't go the way I imagined, and there's a part of me that's really upset about it, but I'm also the one witnessing the upset and holding it in a place of tenderness, knowing that I'm in the process of resolving whatever it is to a better solution. And there's disturbance about it. So we can hold all of whatever we're going through in a loving embrace. So I'm going to tell you a story instead of an exercise we would do if you were in a room, because I love to play with my participants. And I'm going to tell you a story about a client who came to see me one day, just to give you an example of what this model looks like. I'm going to tell you a different story because of time. A different client. She came in, she was really upset. She was all full of complaint and judgment. And the good news about complaining is it tells us there's something missing and that we would like something different than we have. And that's where we kind of move into that realm of making requests. And sometimes we have to make a request of ourselves to lift up into creativity. So she was really upset because her ex-husband lost his job again, and therefore there were no child support payments coming in. And she had 3 teenage boys, and they eat a lot. And she was an entrepreneur. And she felt very much resentment that she was counting on him and she disappointed him again. And I told her, this is great. This is so good. And she was really not happy with what I said because she was very committed to being right about being wronged. And people do that. We all do that. I've been wronged, and the whole world would agree that he was a whatever and she was right to be upset. But meanwhile, who's going to live in her upset? I mean, Pia Mellody says, resentment is a poison you drink hoping the other person's going to die. So when she finally stopped hating me for telling her this was great news, and we kind of worked her through her disturbance and calmed her down and opened her up to wonder, she realized that it really was one of the best things that ever happened to her if she took advantage of it by choosing to be responsible for taking care of her business and making herself profitable. And if indeed he did show up in any way as a contributor to the kids, she was going to put that money in a separate place and use it as a vacation money. And so that's taking leadership in her life. That's making something useful about circumstances she has no control over. She was trying to micromanage him so he would keep his job, but what kind of fun is that in life? So instead, she took all her creative power back and she invested it in herself, in the only 2 things any of us have dominion over, which is our choices and our actions. The rest of it, we just have to learn how to be in relationship with it. So, life isn't joyful because we have glorious circumstances. We all have had wonderful, I remember going on a hike one day when I was younger, and it was the most beautiful place in the world, and I remember not having any of it because I was so stuck in my head about something somebody had said to me. So it's not about our outer circumstances that bring us joy. The thing that makes us joyful is that we're creative beings, that we could participate in our lives, that we can make a difference, that we can make a positive difference to ourselves and others, that we could be creative and inventive and experiment and design new things. That when it snows, we can choose to go skiing, Or maybe we can choose to stay home and read a book and have a good time no matter what. There was a time when I was working with a man, and he was a widower when I met him. And he was telling me about a story when he came home, and his wife, who had cancer, was on the couch, and she greeted him. And I guess they had a family ritual where he would tell her about his day. And that particular day, he told me she was laying on the couch. She was really tired. And he just downloaded all his complaints and his grumpiness. And, it's a way for him to come home. And she looked up at him and she said, "Sweetheart, problems exist in the world of the living." And when he said that, I got the chills. And I realized how much of life I take for granted. And the way I know that is because I'm complaining. It's not the way I want it to be. Versus being grateful I have circumstances, and then I can participate in making my life better. And you can consider that you have the same opportunity, that when life happens, you can ask yourself, what am I going to do about it? I can choose to be grateful I have circumstances. I could choose to be aware that I have the gift of creativity, and then I can contribute to my greater well-being and to the well-being of others. I can choose to be kind. I can choose to be loving. I can choose to make a positive difference and live by design. Thank you.